Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Om Swastiastu. Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Good morning. It is a distinguished honor to welcome you all to Elevate IFN Indonesia Forum and Sharia Investment Week 2026. Let's give a round of applause. First of all, we would like to welcome our most esteemed guest, Head of Department of Capital Market Regulation and Development Indonesia Financial Services Authority or OJK, Mr. Henry Rialdi, on behalf of Chief Executive of Capital Market Financial Derivative and Carbon Exchange Supervision Indonesia Financial Services Authority, Mr. Hassan Fauzi. We would like to welcome our distinguished guests, President Commissioner of IDX, Mrs. Nur Haidia. We would like to welcome our distinguished guest, President Commissioner of Indonesia Securities Clearing and Guarantee Corporation, Mr. Hussein. Director of IDX, Mrs. Risa Rustam, along with the board directors. President Director of Indonesia Securities Clearing and Guarantee Corporation, Mr. Iding Pardi, along with the board of directors. We would like to welcome Director of the Indonesia Central Securities Depository, Mrs. Eki Esiki, along with the Board of Directors. We would like to welcome the Managing Director and Publisher of Red Money Group, Mr. Andrew Morgan. We would like to welcome the esteemed boards of commissioners of the self-regulatory organization. We would like to welcome the boards of commissioners and directors of the SRO subsidiary companies. We would like to welcome members of the MUI's National Sharia Board or DSN-MUI. We would like to welcome representatives of Islamic financial institution, Syariah Bank, Syariah Insurance, and all the members of the press and media joining us today. And our distinguished guests, both present here in the main hall and joining us virtually from across the nation. Good morning and welcome to the opening ceremony of Elevate IFN Indonesia Forum and Sharia Investment Week 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, this year marks a historic milestone. 15 years since the launch of the Indonesia Sharia Stock Index, the DSN-MUI Fatwa number 80, and the Sharia online trading system. These pillars have defined the awakening of the Indonesia Islamic capital market. As part of our continuous effort to strengthen the branding and position of our Sharia capital market, on both local and regional stages, the Indonesia Stock Exchange with Indonesia Securities Clearing and Guarantee Corporation and the Indonesia Central Securities Depository, supported by Indonesia Financial Services Authority, is proud to present a special commemorative event. Elevate Indonesia Islamic Capital Market 15 years rising, heading worldwide. Over the next 4 days, from May 20 to 23rd, we invite you to join us both here at the main hall and virtually through siw.idx.co.id. Elevate 2026 expands our flagship event, Sharia Investment Week, by integrating two premier events, the IFN Indonesia Forum and Sharia Investment Week 2026. Our events features international forums, exclusive networking, thematic talk shows, and seminars, expo in entertainment. Today is more than a celebration. It is a strategic effort to drive Sharia financial literacy and strengthen the collaboration among all stakeholders in the Indonesia Sharia capital market. Without further ado, let us begin. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to commence this morning proceedings, we would like to invite Director of Indonesia Stock Exchange, Mrs. Risa Rustam, to deliver her welcoming remarks. To Mrs. Risa, the floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, our most esteemed guest, Department Head of Capital Market Regulations and Development Indonesia Financial Services Authority or OJK, Pak Henry Rialdi. On behalf of Chief Executive of Capital Market, Financial Derivative and Carbon Exchange Supervision of OJK, Bapak Hasan Fauzi, Board of Directors of Sharia Window Exchange Members atau ABSOTS, Bapak Chan Chow Hing, Ibu Vivi, Ibu Ferawati, Pak Andre, dan Pak Prama, members of the National Sharia Council of Indonesian Ulama Council atau DSN MUI, Managing Director and Publisher of Red Money Group, Mr. Andrew Morgan. The esteemed boards of commissioners of Indonesia, forgive me, our Chief Commissioner, Ibu Nur Haida, and Managing Director and esteemed board of commissioners and Directors of Indonesia Self-Regulatory Organization or SRO, and our subsidiaries, our spokesperson and tenants, and also our distinguished guests, both present here in the main hall and joining us virtually. First and foremost, let us express our deepest gratitude to Almighty God for His blessings, allowing us to gather here today in celebration of remarkable milestone, the 15th anniversary of Indonesian Sharia Capital Market Awakening, as we officially open the event series, Elevate 15 Years Rising, Heading Worldwide. On behalf of IDX, I would like to extend a very warm welcome and sincere appreciation to distinguished guest speakers, regulators, industry leaders, investors, and stakeholders joining us today, both from Indonesia and abroad. Today, we celebrate 15 years since the launch of Indonesia Sharia Stock Index, or ISSI, the issuance of the DSN MUI Fatwa number 80, and the implementation of the Sharia Online Trading System, or SOTS. These landmarks were the essential catalyst for the awakening of Indonesia Islamic capital market. This year, we have evolved our annual flagship, Sharia Investment Week, into a more expansive platform, Elevate 2026. This milestone event brings together the IFN Indonesia Forum and the 7th edition of Sharia Investment Week under one global banner. The IFN Indonesia Forum 2026 marks the first collaboration between the Red Money and SROs, supported by the Indonesia Financial Services Authorities atau OJK. Through this forum, we hope to strengthen international engagement and broaden discussion of the development of Indonesia's Sharia capital market. Over the next few days until May 23rd, we will feature 3 international forums, 2 closed-door dialogue sessions, 7 thematic seminar and talk shows, and 1 inspirational talk, and over 40 expert speakers and moderators representing regulators, global industry stakeholders, academia, and public figures. We are also pleased to welcome more than 60 exhibitors, both physically and virtually through the SIW 2026 platform, including 15 tenants of Sharia Window Exchange members and 12 tenants of multinational companies representing global Islamic capital market stakeholders. Distinguished guests, over the past 15 years, Indonesia's Sharia capital market has continued to grow steadily. As of May 13, 2026, the growth of Sharia-compliant stocks has increased from 237 in 2011 to 673 today, representing 70% of all listed companies. During the same period, the market capitalization of the ISSI grew significantly, reaching 399 billion US dollar as of May 13, 2026, representing a 255% increase. Furthermore, based on our 15-year performance data, the ISSI ranked fourth among major global Sharia indices with a return of 94%. The growth of our investor base also equally impressive. Data from our Sharia window exchange members shows that in the last 15 years, the number of Sharia investors has surged by over 425 times, from 531 in 2012 to 226,457 investors as of April 2026. This clearly demonstrates that Sharia capital market instruments have become a preferred investment choice for the Indonesian public. International recognition has also continued to strengthen Indonesia's position in the global Islamic finance industry. In 2025, our market once again received international acclaim from the Global Islamic Finance Award, or GIFA, winning the GIFA's Championship Award for Islamic Capital Market 2025. This marks the 8th awards received by IDX from GIFA since 2016. Notably, between 2019 and 2022, Indonesia was consistently recognized as the best Islamic capital market in the world. Indonesia Islamic capital market is supported by a comprehensive end-to-end Sharia ecosystem, covering trading, clearing, settlements, and investment protection mechanism aligned with the SN-MUI Sharia principle. This ecosystem is further strengthened by a robust regulatory support, active Sharia compliant exchange members, and continuous innovation through the Sharia online trading system atau SOTS. Distinguished guests, as we move forward, we envision a future where the Sharia capital market continues to flourish as a promising investment alternative that contributes significantly to Indonesia's economic growth. Through Elevate 2026, we reaffirm our commitment to opening wider access for global stakeholders, strengthening international partnerships, and positioning Indonesia as a strategic hub for Islamic capital market development worldwide. Finally, I wish you all a remarkable experience throughout the Elevate 2026 IFN Indonesia Forum and Sharia Investment Week 2026. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ibu Risa. You may return to your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, we shall now hear an acknowledgement speech from the Managing Director and Publisher of Red Money Group, Mr. Andrew Morgan. Mr. Morgan, we kindly invite you to the stage.
Head of Department of Capital Market Regulation and Development, Indonesia Financial Service Authority, Mr. Henry Rialdi, on behalf of Chief Executive of Capital Market Financial Derivative and Carbon Exchange Supervision of OJK, Mr. Hassan Fauzi, Board of Director of Indonesia Stock Exchange, Board of Directors of Indonesian Clearing and Guarantee Corporation, Board of Director of Indonesia Central Securities Depository, the esteemed boards of commissioners of the Indonesia self-regulatory organizations, our distinguished guests, both present here in the main hall and joining virtually, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. I want to begin with a simple observation. When you look around this room today, you see something rather remarkable. You see regulators and market practitioners sitting side by side. You see multilateral institutions and private investors in the same space. You see international experts and homegrown talent all gathered under one roof. That, in many ways, is itself a statement about where Indonesia's Islamic finance industry stands today: open, connected, and confident. It was not so long ago that conversations about Indonesia's Islamic finance potential were dominated by caveats. Yes, the world's largest Muslim majority country. Yes, extraordinary demographics. Yes, a growing middle class. But always followed by the question, when will the potential translate into substance? I think we can say with genuine conviction that the when is now. Over the past few years, Indonesia has undertaken a top-down transformation of its Islamic finance architecture that has few parallels anywhere in the world. With the country's president personally chairing the National Islamic Finance Committee, the signals from the highest levels of government have been clear and indisputable. This is a strategic national priority, not a niche financial product line, but a pillar of Indonesia's broader economic ambition. The results are visible. We are seeing growth across the entire ecosystem: Islamic banking, capital markets, takaful, social finance, and financing for MSMEs. Sukuk issuance has deepened. Indonesia is one of the most prolific sukuk issuers in the world today. Sharia-compliant indices and trading platforms have brought retail investors into the fold. And the appetite for international investors is real. International capital does not travel to markets out of goodwill. It travels where it sees clarity of regulation, depth of product, quality of governance, and size of opportunity. Indonesia demonstrates all four. This did not happen by accident, nor overnight. It reflects long-term vision, political will, and collective effort across both the public and the private sectors. Institutions such as Bank Indonesia, OJK, and KNEKS have played important roles in building a more resilient and inclusive Islamic financial ecosystem. But we're also gathered here today because we are honest about the work that remains to be done. Potential, no matter how large, does not convert itself. This is why events like today matter. Equally important is the spirit of partnership that defines these events. These are not abstract conversations. They are conversations that shape investment, decisions, regulatory priorities, and ultimately the lives of the millions of Indonesians whom Islamic finance is meant to serve. Over the course of today's discussions, I encourage all of us to think not only about what has been achieved, but what about what comes next? How do we scale responsibly? How do we ensure resilience in an uncertain global environment? And how do we maintain the ethical core that defines Islamic finance, even as we innovate and expand? If Indonesia's journey so far is any indication, the answers will lie in collaboration, clarity of purpose, and a willingness to adapt without losing sight of foundational principles. I want to acknowledge Indonesia Stock Exchange, the co-host and strategic partner for today, for their commitment they have shown to this agenda, not only through their support of this event, but through 15 years of sustained development of the Islamic capital market. That milestone is worth pausing on. IDX nurtured a handful of Sharia-compliant instruments into a full ecosystem of indices, screening tools, trading platforms, and dedicated market infrastructure. Progress that has been deliberate, consistent, and increasingly impactful. To each of you in the audience, thank you for being here. The conversation in this room, both on the stage and away from it, is where ideas get tested, partnerships begin, and real decisions are made. Thank you again to IDX for hosting us today. We wish them continued success. There's a full and rich day ahead. Let us make the most of it. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all an enjoyable and fruitful day.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan, for your remarkable speech. Please return to your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, we now proceed to the keynote speech to be delivered by Head of Department of Capital Market Regulatory and Development Indonesia Financial Services Authority, or OJK, Mr. Henry Rialdi, on behalf of Chief Executive of Capital Market Financial Derivative and Carbon Exchange Supervision Indonesia Financial Services Authority, Mr. Hassan Fauzi. And these remarks will be immediately followed by the official opening ceremony of Elevate IFN Indonesia Forum and Sharia Investment Week 2026. Mr. Henry Rialdi, the stage is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning, distinguished President Commissioner of IDX, Ibu Nur Haida, and Director of Indonesia Stock Exchange, Ms. Risa Rustam, along with the Board of Directors. President Director of Indonesia Security Clearing and Guarantee Corporation, Mr. Iding Pardi, along with the Board of Directors, and Pa Hussein, Commissioners. Director of the Indonesia Central Securities Depository, Ms. Egi, along with the Board of Directors. Board of Directors of Sharia Window Exchange members, Managing Director of Red Money Group, Mr. Andrew Morgan. Distinguished leaders of financial institution, industry leaders, institutional investors, academicians, all speakers, SROs, and all respected guests. First and foremost, let us express our gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His blessing and grace. We are able to gather here today and on this meaningful occasion on the opening ceremony of IFN Indonesia Forum 2026, which also marks the 15th anniversary of the revival of Indonesia's Islamic capital market. This marks a transformational journey that began in 2011 with the launch of the Indonesia Sharia Stock Index, or ISSI, the issuance of DSNI MUI Fatwa number 80, and the introduction of the Sharia online trading system, all of which laid the essential foundation of Indonesia's national Islamic capital market ecosystem. On behalf of the Financial Service Authority of Indonesia, we would like to express our sincere appreciation to the Indonesia Stock Exchange, KP, KSE, the National Sharia Council of the Indonesia Ulama, industry participants, academicians, investors, communities, and all stakeholders who over the past 15 years have worked together to build, safeguard, and develop Indonesia's Islamic capital market into what it proudly is today. Ladies and gentlemen, 15 years ago, many viewed the Islamic capital market merely as an alternative segment, a niche market, growing gradually. Today, however, the facts tell a different story. The Islamic capital market has transformed into a solid ecosystem with an investor base that is growing not only in quantity, but also in quality. This is evidenced by the resilience of the Indonesia's Islamic capital market amid global pressures, resulting from escalating geopolitical tensions as well as current domestic market issues. As of the end of April 2026, the market capitalization of Sharia equities reached approximately IDR 7,225 trillion, growing more than 5% year on year, representing nearly 70% of Indonesia's total equity market capitalization. In terms of performance, the Indonesia Sharia Stock Index recorded an increase of approximately 17% year on year as the end of April 2026. Meanwhile, outstanding corporate sukuk grew by 47.4% year on year to IDR 92.8 trillion, accounting for a market share of 16.6% of total outstanding debt, securities, and sukuk. Sharia mutual funds also recorded significant growth, with the net asset value reaching IDR 84.42 trillion, an increase of 53.65% year on year, representing 12.12% of total mutual fund asset under management. In addition, funds raised through Sharia securities crowdfunding, or Sharia SCF, grew by 33% to IDR 1.12 trillion, representing 57.8% of the total funds raised by the entire SCF industry. These figures send a very clear message. Sharia is no longer merely complementary. It has become a mainstream driver in the development of Indonesia's financial market. Beyond market size, investor participation has also shown very strong growth. As of March 2026, ownership of Sharia securities exceeded 4 million investors, representing an increase of 35.25% year on year. During the same period, the number of users of Sharia online trading system also grew by more than 50,000 investors, reaching 221.8 from its March 2025 position. Even more encouraging, as of April 2026, the average transaction value of Sharia equities reflected in the ISSI reached IDR 16.4 trillion, growing approximately 147% year on year compared to April 2025, with average trading volume reaching 30.8 billion shares, or 67.8% on the average trading volume across the entire equity market. This demonstrates that Sharia instruments offer not only principles of halal compliance and fairness, but competitiveness, resilience, and attractive return potential, both domestically and globally. Ladies and gentlemen, rapid achievement of growth always comes with greater responsibilities. OJK observes that the growing enthusiasm among investors, particularly young investors and Muslim retail investors, also presents new challenges. The phenomena of FOMO, or fear of missing out, trend-driven investment decision, speculative behavior, and concentration in certain high volatile stocks require our collective attention. We do not want high growth to create asset bubbles, herd mentality, or risk-taking without full understanding. Therefore, we would like to emphasize the following. First, Sharia investment is not merely about following trends. Second, Sharia investment is a long-term endeavor built upon knowledge, discipline, transparency, and blessings. We understand that the public is becoming increasingly critical regarding quality of Sharia implementation, from non-halal income composition, exposure to speculative activities, to the financial instrument structures being used. Therefore, OJK, with the Indonesia Stock Exchange, DSN MUI, and all stakeholders, continues to strengthen standards and governance in the Islamic capital market. One strategic measure is the tightening of the non-halal income threshold for Sharia stocks to a maximum of 5% starting in 2026. This policy is not merely a technical adjustment. It represents the regulator's commitment to ensuring that the growth of Indonesia's Islamic capital market continues hand-on-hand with stronger credibility, accountability, and public trust. We firmly believe that a growing Islamic market must be built upon credible and sustainable foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, having successfully become one of the world's largest Islamic capital market in terms of the number of Sharia-listed equities and market capitalization, the next step is to position Indonesia as a regional Islamic capital market hub, not only as a large domestic market, but also as a center of innovation, Islamic financing, global investment, and regulatory best practices that can serve as a global reference. To achieve this vision, OJK will continue to advance three main goals. First, market deepening through diversification of Sharia products, ranging from Sharia equities, sukuk, Sharia mutual fund, Sharia ETFs, to Sharia-based securities crowdfunding. Second, expanding the investor base through digitalization and education. We want access to Sharia investments to become more inclusive, more accessible, and capable of reaching young generations across Indonesia. Third, strengthening integrity and global competitiveness through harmonization of Sharia standards, stronger governance, and international collaboration with global industry players. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Islamic capital market is not merely about financial instruments. It is part of a greater mission to build an economy that is fairer, more inclusive, more transparent, and more sustainable. Sharia teaches us that success is measured not only by returns, but also by responsibility, not only by profit, but also by purpose, and not only by growth, but also by blessings. Therefore, on this milestone of 15 years of the revival, we invite all stakeholders to ensure that Indonesia's Islamic capital market not only grows domestically, but also stands strong on global trust and commands recognition on the world stage. I wish you all productive and enriching participation throughout the next 3 days. May this forum provide inspiration, broaden perspectives, and further strengthen Indonesia's Islamic capital market ecosystem. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih Bapak Henry. Untuk kami minta tetap berada di atas panggung, to stay, remain on the stage, to open the event. And we would like to invite our esteemed dignitaries to the stage to officially launch Elevate IFN Indonesia Forum and Sharia Investment Week 2026 today. We would like to invite the Director of Indonesia Stock Exchange, Mrs. Risa Rustam, to join us to the stage. We would like to invite President Director of Indonesia Securities Clearing and Guarantee Corporation, Mr. Iding Pardi, to join us to the stage. We would like to invite Director of Indonesia Central Securities Depository, Mrs. Eki Esiki, to join us. And we would like to invite the Managing Director and Publisher of Red Money Group, Mr. Andrew Morgan, to join us. Ladies and gentlemen, we kindly invite you to prepare the ceremonial ticket or the boarding pass and be ready to scan it into the red light box. Bapak dan Ibu akan diberikan boarding pass tiket. Ini adalah sebagai tanda dibukanya Elevate 2026 dan nanti akan berubah cahaya warna merah menjadi warna hijau. Kita akan hitung bersama-sama. After the countdown, to signify the official opening of Elevate IFN Indonesia Forum and Sharia Investment Week 2026. Oke, Bapak dan Ibu silahkan ditunjukkan boarding pass-nya. Please show the boarding pass. And we would like to invite journalists, photographers, videographers to be on the position to capture this remarkable moment. Wonderful. Please join me in the countdown. Mari kita hitung bersama-sama untuk membuka acara ini. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please give a round of applause. This is Elevate IFN Indonesia Forum and Sharia Investment Week 2026 is officially open. Please give a round of applause of this remarkable moment. And we would like to invite Bapak dan Ibu untuk berada di tengah karena kita akan mengabadikan momen ini bersama-sama lewat foto. Kami persilakan teman-teman jurnalis, fotografer, videografer untuk menempati ke tengah. We would like to invite all the videographers, photographers to capture this remarkable moment. I will count together in 3, 2, 1. Once again, perhaps with the IDX signature pose aku investor saham. Baik. Please give your best smile in 3, 2, 1. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to invite you to stand in the front of the stage because after this we will take the photo together with all the audiences. Bapak dan Ibu hadirin sekalian, saya mohon untuk bangkit berdiri karena kita akan mengabadikan momen ini bersama-sama dengan seluruh tamu. Boleh merapat supaya semua terlihat. Silakan teman-teman fotografer dan videografer sudah di posisinya masing-masing. I will count down from already. Okay. Okay. I will count down in 3, 2, 1. Once again, dengan pose aku investor saham. Please give your best smile. In 3, 2, 1. Final shot, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Please be seated to your seat. Silakan kembali duduk Bapak-bapak dan Ibu-ibu. Distinguished guests, please direct your attention to the screen as we reflect on 15 years of the Indonesia Sharia Capital Market Awakening and preview the exciting highlights of Elevate 2026. Please enjoy the video. Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude the opening ceremony of Elevate IFN Indonesia Forum and Sharia Investment Week 2026, let us join together in prayer. This session will be led by Mr. Abdul Rahman Akanbi Abdul Ganiyu from the Faculty of Islamic Studies Indonesian International Islamic University. To Mr. Abdul Rahman Akanbi Abdul Ganiyu, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Kindly permit me to lead the opening prayer. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Alhamdulillah أيضا الذي جمعنا في هذا الصباح من مختلف الدول العالم والمؤسسات العلمية والعملية والثقافية في هذه البقعة الميمونة المباركة للمشاركة في الملتقى الإندونيسي للتمويل الإسلامي والأسبوع الاستثماري الإسلامي 2026. باسمه العظيم نفتح ونبدأ هذا الملتقى النافع الذي يجري خلال مدة 4 أيام من حوارات ومداخلات وتوصيات وقرارات. اللهم بارك لنا في هذا الملتقى واجعله نافعا مفيدا ومحققا لمقاصد التي عقد لأجله. اللهم وفق المحاضرين والمشاركين في تحقيق الأهداف وإنتاجات القرارات والتوصيات التي تحسن وتطور التمويل الإسلامي والاستثمار الإسلامي في جميع الدول ولا سيما دولة إندونيسيا وسائر الدول العربية الذين يعتنون بالاستثمار الإسلامي والتمويل الإسلامي. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أيضا أن يجزي ويدعم ويعضد القائمين بهذه المؤتمر العظيم، وكما نسأل سبحانه وتعالى لجميع المشاركين والمشاركات فيه. Ya Allah, all praises, adorations, and glorifications are due to you. We ask you to send his peace, blessings, and salutations to the noblest Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his households, his companions, and every one of us that we try to follow the footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam until the day of judgment. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for bringing all of us together from different parts of the world this morning in this great hall, beautiful hall, to actively participate in the opening ceremony of Elevate IFN Indonesia Forum and Sharia Investment Week 2026. Oh Allah, Ya Jabbar, for this important event filled with valuable discussions and programs, we place ourselves and all our efforts under your guidance and protection. We ask you, subhanahu wa ta'ala, to bless this forum, guide the speakers and participants towards wisdom and righteousness. We also ask you to help the gathering successfully achieve its goals, especially in producing ideas, solutions, and decisions that will advance and strengthen Islamic finance and Islamic capital markets in Indonesia and internationally. Ya Allah, Ya Rahim, We ask you to guide us along with those whom you have guided. We ask you to forgive us along those whom you have forgiven. Take us into your care and friendship along with those under your protection. We also ask you to bless everything we'll be doing here and in the couple of days. We ask you to bless all of us and to protect us from the harm and heavy of what you have decreed. We ask you also that we acknowledge that only you can decide all matters. We are only making efforts, and no one can overrule your decision. And whosoever receives your protection and friendship will never be disgraced or humiliated. Oh Allah, grant us goodness in this world, goodness in the hereafter, and protect us from the punishment of the hellfire. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع الدعاء وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you very much.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the opening ceremony of Elevate IFN Indonesia Forum and Sharia Investment Week 2026. We will now proceed to the IFN Indonesia Forum 2026 session led by Managing Director and Publisher of Red Money Group, Mr. Andrew Morgan. I am Dina Gurning. It has been an honor serving you as your host. May the Indonesian Sharia capital market continue to thrive and rise nationwide and beyond. Before we move to the next session, let us watch the IDX company profile video.
Every strong market begins with a solid foundation. In Indonesia, preservation and progress advance together, protecting long-term value while building for the future. Growth driven by trade, industry, and innovation calls for a market that is trusted, resilient, and built for the long term. Indonesia Stock Exchange is the nation's capital market infrastructure, connecting market participants to long-term value creation. Over time, IDX has continued to strengthen market depth, expand participation, and bolster market resilience. Aligned with international standards, IDX delivers integrity, transparency, and reliability, earning the trust of global investors. Sustainability is a commitment. We support responsible investment and the transition to a lower carbon economy. With a legacy of trust and a global outlook, Indonesia Stock Exchange continues to shape markets for the future. Indonesia Stock Exchange, shaping markets for a global future.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we would like to invite Managing Director and Publisher of Red Money Group to lead the IFN Indonesia Forum 2026. Please give a round of applause and welcome Mr. Andrew Morgan.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, again, welcome to the 17th IFN Indonesia Forum. And to our friends who have travelled from across the region and beyond, welcome to Jakarta. We are genuinely delighted to have you all here, and of course those joining us online. My name is Andrew Morgan. I'm the co-managing director of Red Money and the publisher of Islamic Finance News and IFN Investor, and I'm honoured to be your MC for the remainder of today. Today's discussions will span investment, private equity, venture capital, sovereign wealth, Islamic capital markets, and sustainable finance. Shortly, our first panel will explore Indonesia's Islamic finance landscape. Following networking and refreshments in our second panel, we examine the development of Islamic capital markets across ASEAN and the shared challenge of transforming regional scale and demand into sustained issuance, liquidity, and market depth. We then have an intriguing presentation entitled Reimagining Money, Stablecoins and Digital Assets in Islamic Finance, followed by another presentation entitled Impacting Lives Through Partnership with Islamic Institutions. And our final panel this morning, we will explore how Indonesia can evolve into investment sectors beyond existing models to become a regional hub for Sharia-compliant funds and private equity. And we end with further networking and refreshments. If you require assistance, please do not hesitate to come and find me or one of my colleagues roaming around. We are happy to help you. Before we begin, a couple of very humble requests. As you meet old acquaintances or accept phone calls, please take the conversation out of this room. For today's agenda, moderators and speakers, you may scan the QR code on the back of your badges. Slido is now active, so if you have questions or comments, please post them directly on Slido, and they'll go directly to the moderator. We'll do everything we can to answer as many questions as possible. If you've not yet accessed it, please scan the QR code on the cards on your seats, or there are buntings around the hall. Of course, today wouldn't be possible, ladies and gentlemen, without our partners. Okay, moving on to our very first panel, ladies and gentlemen, entitled From Policy to Participation, Scaling Indonesia's Islamic Finance Ecosystem. Moderating this first session is Nicholas Edmonds, partner at Trowers and Hamlins. Joining Nicholas on stage, we have an esteemed panel. Anna Cristanti, Senior Vice President of International and Financial Institution Group, Bank Sharia Indonesia. Chong Jun Wong, Assistant Vice President, Analyst, Financial Institution Group, Moody's Ratings. Iko Adi Irianto, Deputy Director, Department of Islamic Economy and Finance, Bank Indonesia. Mohammed Imran, Senior Analyst of the Directorate of Banking, Financial Market and Other Financing Development, Directorate General of Stability and Financial Sector Development, Ministry of Finance, Republic of Indonesia, and Ramin Hakim, Deputy Director, Islamic Banking Directorate, Sharia Banking Development and Regulation, Financial Services Authority, OJK. Can I invite all the first panelists to the stage, please? And can we have a round of applause for your first panel? Nicholas, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Well, you know, what an exciting start to the day. The challenge this panel has is to be quite as entertaining as the dancers, the videos, the aeroplanes. My job today, I guess, is to try and pilot this team through the next session. We're going to navigate some of the difficult questions that have been asked of us, and hopefully we'll elevate your understanding of the regulatory and environmental position that we're in here in Indonesia. I'm pleased to have a panel that loosely, if I may, call a sort of private sector and public sector mix, in the sense that we've got three representatives here from Ministry of Finance, OJK, and Bank Indonesia, as well as CJ here from Moody's and Anna from Bank Syariah. So we kind of got the poacher and gamekeeper on the panel. To start us off, just to give everyone a fresh run, we've got a lot of questions, and I'm sure we won't do them all. So apologies if one of your burning questions doesn't come up. From your perspective, panel, what has been the single most important driver of progress in Indonesia and the Islamic finance ecosystem over the last 2 years? And I'll go straight down. So let's see CJ go first.
Sure. Thanks a lot for having me. So I think from our perspective, one of the most important key driver is the mandatory spin-off of the Sharia banking units once they reach a certain size. So for example, I think 50 trillion or 50% of the parent's balance sheet. And that's really important because it improves the competitiveness of the Sharia financing sector. I think I understand that this was announced in 2023, but you know what's really important for us to understand is that this has triggered some of the changes that we are seeing in the sector over the past 2 years. Now, I think prior to this regulation, you have one big bank, BSI, and you have a long string of smaller size Sharia banks, standalone Sharia banks. And what this means is that there could be challenges competing with the conventional peers when it comes to providing services to the customers and things like that. So when they are small, it means they have challenges competing for deposits, for example, challenges in terms of digital offering, upgrading their IT infrastructure, and things like that. But with this change, the competitive dynamics, in our opinion, will change. And this is something that we have seen, right? Apart from BSI, you have a new mid-sized Sharia bank, BSN, for example. You're going to have one more coming up over the next 12 to 18 months. And hopefully, over the next 3 to 4 years, you will see more mid-sized Sharia banks, standalone Sharia banks, and coming into the competitive scene. And this is important because as a standalone bank, as compared to a Sharia business unit, I suppose being a standalone bank means you have more focus. You will be able to focus more on what you want to do. In terms of capital allocation, there is also a difference, because if you're a part of a SBU, Sharia banking unit, you need to think about, whether you want to allocate more to conventional or Sharia part of the business. At the same time, with these standalone units, you can also help to raise the awareness. It can provide better product differentiation. So all in all, I think we think that this is one of the most important policy that will help to drive the expansion of the sector. And so yeah, I'll just leave it as that.
Thank you. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. So, in my view, that the most important driver has been policy and institutional consolidation across the Islamic finance ecosystem. And over the past 2 years, that now Indonesia has shifted from fragmented initiative toward a more coordinated system-based approach. And this shift is clearly reflected in the enactment of UU P2SK, of course, and also it strengthened the overall financial sector framework, including Sharia finance. And for the international level, that the inclusion of Islamic banking from Bangsa Indonesia, we do the dual banker license like as a Sharia banker and as a Bullion bank license. So this will be the strengthening of Bank Syariah Indonesia role for now. And the designation of BSI now as a national champion and a part of, now BSI is a part of Himbara, and also significantly improve for the market confidence and credibility. That's from our perspective from the bank, yeah, from the bank perspective.
Thank you.
And also now from the customer, the shifting from the apathetic customer, now they are doing for the conformist. That is full, they want to do the Syariah transaction banking now. That's
Thank
from
you.
my
Thank you very much, Anna. Back you go. From your perspective, please don't be self-congratulatory. If you can, gentlemen, I mean, we've heard that there have been major improvements, but there are obviously more that we can do. But what's been the most important thing?
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. From my perspective, I think the biggest or the most important thing is the foundation of the Islamic finance and economics is already there in the last 2 years, because the government has already put Islamic finance and Islamic economics as one of the strategic driver for growth. The Islamic finance and Islamic economics is currently included in our long-term plan, RPJPN, and also it's derived into RPJMN or medium-term plan. And as a response to that, Bank Indonesia recently issued our new blueprint for Islamic economic and finance 2030. To move it a little further for my explanation, in the supply side, as Mr. Wong already explained that, in the supply side, there is a nice or important development from the Islamic banking. For example, currently our asset or our financing growth for Islamic banking is about 9.66%. It's quite high. Even the recent figures last month, April, is double digit. So not only our economic growth is a bit more than 5%, but the financing growth for Islamic finance, Islamic banking is double digit. It's more than 10%. That's from the supply side. And the demand side, the interesting development is the progressive or the campaign of halal product. You know that the halal development is creating more demand for Islamic finance in the end. So I think both sides is currently under dynamic and prospective development, and I believe that the Islamic finance will go further in the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, look, I mean, no offense, but if Islamic finance industry in Indonesia is going to grow, it needs to grow at faster than the rate of growth of the economy. So, double-digit growth is great, but that's really to be expected, given the fact that we're starting from quite a low base, I think. Pak Hakim, would you like to say what you think are the most important developments, and also just, take a little bit look forward? What do you see coming down the pipe? What's the next sort of step?
Okay. Well, thanks, Nick. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, actually, there were several major events that happened over past years. One of them was the issuance of the Financial Sector Omnibus Law in 2023, which provided a great momentum to strengthen and develop Islamic finance ecosystem. The law has provided a new mandates such as spin-off policy, the expansion of banking activities, the establishment of the bullion banks, and in terms of the governance layers, there was the establishment of Indonesia Financial Development Committee, which play a vital role to strengthen and development Indonesia finance ecosystem. And also OJK has launched the roadmap for Islamic banking for 2023 until 2027, which consists of 5 key pillars, which are strengthening industry structure and resilience, accelerating digitalization, strengthening Islamic banking characteristic, increasing contribution to the national economy, and the last is strengthening regulation, licensing, and regulation itself. These drivers are key foundational, not only in strengthening Indonesia Islamic finance ecosystem, but in placing our country as a formidable player in the global Islamic finance landscape. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Hakim. Pak Imran, we didn't get a chance to meet before the session, so hopefully you can take a view from the ministry's perspective. What do you see as the... And again, look a little bit looking forward. I'll come to you in a moment about next steps.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you. In my perspective, that Indonesian Islamic finance progress has instead been driven by ecosystem scale coordination rather than isolated growth product. Regulative priorities have also shifted toward institution consolidation, halal ecosystem integration, MSME financing, and digital financial enablement. Indonesia has moved from fragmented initiative to a more integrated Islamic economy finance strategy. So, like have been explained before, that Indonesia have national planning, long-term and middle planning. This is the main guide of the development of Islamic finance. And then we also have MAXI, Master Plan of Economy and Financial Sharia. We have also roadmap for Islamic finance development by OJK. So this is the guidance for us to develop Islamic finance in Indonesia. Other than the spot of government to develop the economic finance in Indonesia is quite good. For example, for like in supply side, like Pak Eko said, we established the national bank that's quite big, like Bank Syariah Indonesia. This is the anchor of the development of Islamic finance in Indonesia, especially in banking sector. And the last, Ministry of Finance also have developed innovation instrument like sukuk. We have many kind of sukuk like green sukuk. We have also have cash wakaf link sukuk. This is a social instrument. And also we have retail sukuk, saving sukuk. This is a very innovative instrument that can support development of Islamic finance in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, and this may not be a fair question, looking at this time tunnel here and the very impressive video we had of 15 years of the capital market regime, when you're sitting in the ministry and thinking about projecting forward policy, in your mind, what is the kind of percentage level of penetration in the banking industry that you would like to see in Indonesia for the Islamic finance industry? whether that's banking or takaful. Do you have a kind of target? We want to get to 25%, 30% penetration, and then think about how to get there. Is that in the industry's mind, or are you taking it piece by piece?
Okay. Yes, actually we have a target. Also, I have known the certain number, but yes, we have developed the projection of the Islamic finance for 5 until maybe 2045 in golden Indonesia, or Indonesia, and we have projection. Maybe we will have about like maybe 20 or 22% market share for banking as Indonesia.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's really helpful. So Anna, if I can turn to you again, which sector do you think is going to be the kind of key, to see the strongest growth, if you like? Is it going to be banking, takaful, or social finance, SME financing? Where do you see the real potential growth?
Yeah. So I think from now is growing very fast in terms of the banking, in terms of the insurance or takaful, and also from the capital market side from Syariah. Yeah. But from our point of view, that the most stronger will be growth is from the banking sector, from the banking sectors, with more than 1 trillion asset. Yeah, 1 million trillion asset. It will be like 9% annual growth from the 2025. So banking will be the strongest growth driver from the asset side. And from the comparison, yeah, from the capital market, from Syariah capital market on 2025, from year on year is growth from 8.23%, and also from the takaful from Syariah insurance on 2025 growth is only like 3.79% year on year. From the banking side the growth is 9% from the 2025. So the banking side is the strongest growth driver in the coming years from my point of view. And also now Islamic bankings are also the main channel from the micro and small and medium enterprises. So they're making them the critical for financial institution now.
Okay. Can I just quickly
Sure.
jump in? So I think when we look at the structure of the banking system here in Indonesia, specifically on the Sharia part of the business, we realize that similar to what we have seen in Malaysia, I think retail and SMEs would be the big part of the business.
Correct.
And I think looking ahead, would you agree that SMEs and retail will continue to grow faster than the corporates? I think from our perspective, I think the answer is yes, but I was just wondering what you think. And that's because apart from BSI and potentially BSN, I think for the long string of smaller Islamic banks, they don't really have the capitalization to provide large ticket loans for the corporates, right?
Side,
Would you agree with this?
Yeah. So I'm agree because from the Bank Syariah Indonesia itself, from the composition for the loan or for the financing is 56% on the consumer side. Because in terms of the risk itself, we grow on the payroll-based financing, so it's more secure. I mean, rather than we take like the corporate and the commercial side. So from the Bank Syariah Indonesia itself, for the consumer is like 50% the compositions, and the corporate side is only like 27%. So yes, it will be the most growing on the commercial side, the consumer side. Yes, on the retail side, correct.
Thank you. So Pakiko, just from Bank Indonesia's perspective, having heard the private sector side say what they hope is going to be the growth areas, what can Bank Indonesia do to facilitate that, or to perhaps push one of the other areas of the industry like takaful or social finance stronger? What's your view on that?
I think I will answer from the perspective of banking, because we are not regulating takaful or capital market.
But you're pushing, helping, right?
Yeah. So currently we are still in the in the state of, if we talk in the macro side, we are in the state of expansion from the financial system or financial sector. During this expansion period, so we give incentives to bank to grow their credit or their financing. So we have priorities, make a prioritization for certain sectors, for example, agriculture, and then manufacture, and also what has been the priority of last government, current government, is the hilirization or downstreaming of the natural resources. That's one of the priority. And then the other one is, of course, the inclusion side, because we still have to grow the, we call it UMKM here. Why? Because if we want to have a higher growth, 6%, 7%, 8%, we can grow from this current or the current basis of entrepreneurs. We have to grow entrepreneurs. That's why we still provide incentive for bank to grow the credit or the financing for the UMKM or the small and medium enterprises.
Thanks. And is there room, Pak Imran, for incentivization? I mean, obviously that costs money, right? We've seen how Malaysia was very successful in growing its Islamic industry by incentivizing through reduced stamp duty charges on facility agreements and so forth, that incentivized the growth of the industry. Customers were financially encouraged to use an Islamic product because it was actually more cost effective than a conventional product. Is that something in the mind of the policymakers? I mean, it costs money, so you know it ends up in your pocket or coming out of your pocket.
Thank you. It's a difficult question. Yeah. Yes. Actually, we try to make simple from the conventional balance. So, as you know, that tax policy is quite difficult. So, in this case, we and the Ministry of Finance try to have a fair policy pro Islamic finance instrument. Although in some part we also want to enforce to give some incentive, like what we have discussed now about new product in banking sector. We call Sriya. This is the investment product. We want to try to push this with maybe some incentive or some scenario that can push, because we hope that this product will be some. Although we have now happy PSI, but now we want to have some like a game changer. We have what saya kata bulan bank. We want to have other additional like Sriya product to be game changer in banking sector.
Thank you. Sorry for the difficult question. Pak Hakim, in relation to OJK, how important from your perspective is governance, transparency, regulatory compliance in terms of attracting inflows and encouraging the industry to grow? Obviously, that's something you're very aware of, the balance between growth and regulatory compliance and transparency.
Well, I think that the good corporate governance is really important to bring a good foundation for the industry, right? So, like, if we see like deepening the banking sector and scaling up the Islamic capital market, are quite important nowadays to scaling up our Islamic finance. So just to achieve this space, that we need to combine it with the clear and good corporate governance to make sure that our aim and our target can be achieved properly. I think that's the thing that we have to manage it carefully.
Okay. And CJ, looking from the outside looking in, what do international investors pay closest attention to when they're looking at Indonesia as a possible growth market for Islamic finance? You know, what are they worried about, thinking about?
I think when it comes to investing in Indonesia or whether it's in Malaysia from an Islamic perspective, I think for Sukuk investors, they are also wondering whether some of them, they might be mindful about, let's say, whether they are AOF compliant. So for example, some of the GCC investors are not able to buy Sukuks issued out of Malaysia because of the way that some of the Sukuks are being structured in Malaysia, specifically using commodity murabaha. So when you look at GCC, obviously there will be some systems where they structure using commodity murabaha, but the essence is different. I think the way that the scholars in Malaysia, where they try to interpret, right, they interpret it differently from how the scholars are interpreting in the GCC. At the same time, I think we are also talking about AUF 62, right? And I think it's also important to see whether Sukuks issued out of Indonesia, not just Indonesia, but Malaysia and other parts of the world, whether they are AOF compliant or AUF 62 compliant or not. So I think a couple of things to look at. And I think it's also about the maturity of the system, because ultimately it's really the credibility of the issuers, right? Especially for banks, you know, how the banks are performing, what's the asset quality, what's the capitalization, profitability, and things like that. So a couple of things to look at. So essentially, you know, whether they are AOF compliant, for example, how they are structured, and also, you know, who the issuers are. So I think these are the two things that people will want to understand a little bit more.
Sure. I mean, look, Malaysia's blessed with very high liquidity. So as a law firm in Malaysia specializing in Islamic finance, we're often asked, how can we encourage more GCC investment to come into Malaysia? How can we get GCC investors to invest in our Sukuk? But the reality is they don't need that investment because they're going to pretty much sell down all their Sukuk in the local market anyway. So there's no financial incentive to change the structure to suit GCC investors. Now, I don't know if that's the same here. And I'd be interested to know, Pakika, whether, you know, that's something that you're aware of, or your colleagues from the regulatory side. You know, what's the appetite from international investors here? And is there any need for regulatory adjustment?
I think the macro side, I mean, the macro condition of Indonesia is still good. I'm not talking about the current currency problem, but
no, but you'd like lots of foreign currency coming in, right?
No, but from the perspective of the industry, the macro side is quite okay, quite performing, and then the industry, the Islamic banking sector is still performing well and well capitalized also. So the risk is still considered low. And then we also try to differentiate the product offered by the Islamic banking. Like Pak Imran said that we currently, with OJK also, of course, issued the Sharia or Sharia Registered Investment Account, which can be a new vehicle for global investor to enter Indonesian market through Islamic bank. Not only FDI to corporation, for example, or through portfolio like in Sukuk, but also to Islamic bank, directly to the real market or the underlying asset.
Great, thank you. Well, look, let's take a slightly different shift on the panel for the moment, and I just want to ask about two elements. One is kind of customer experience, and to what extent do you think the Islamic finance industry in Indonesia has been too focused on product and structure rather than on customer experience? And I ask that question because, again, sitting in Malaysia, where the vast majority of our Islamic banking is conducted by the big banks, Maybank, CIMB, RHB, who have both conventional and Islamic products. So their customer service is exactly the same. They don't have the differential of different banks approaching the customer pool. They're the same, you know, customer service, and they compete on customer service rather than on product. Is the Indonesian market too focused on the differential between Sharia and conventional rather than on actually improving the overall product. I just wonder whether you have a view from Akiko and from Anna. Maybe Anna would like to go first.
Well, this thing we have think about this. That's why in our roadmap of Islamic banking 2023 until 2027, we have put name strengthening Islamic banking characteristic, where we develop product innovation there. We believe that this product innovation will become a competitive advantage for Islamic banking product uniqueness. Until 2035, OJK has launched 9 product guidelines, such as cash wakaf linking deposit and Sharia guidelines to promote the utilization of unique product characteristic. So we already aware with this concern, and that's why we put it on our roadmap, and we hope that it will help our industry to implement it under service level. So that's what we have done so far.
Can I add from the banking point of view that from us, from Bank Syariah Indonesia, that of course we have like the product, especially from the Syariah side and also from digital side. Because for now, like some persons, they just like, reluctant to go to the branch, right? Even though BSI itself have like 1,000 nationwide for the branches, but we also additionally like giving them like to serve from the digital mobile banking. So we have the apps from Beyond that we can do like easy to do the transaction, especially from like Pak Imran just said, like from Dublian Bank and also from transaction. So we can do like financial and spiritual and like to do the transaction from the apps. So I think from the digitalized, from the banking point of view, is to easier the customer to do the transaction. So I think digital is also most important from the banking side. Yeah. And also like maybe just now you mentioned like Sharia ya Pak, from the Bank Indonesia, that we also have the Syria to enable investor to place the fund directly to the investable project through the Syria. So I think it's from OJK and also from Bank Indonesia, they support us as a bank to do easier investor to doing the investment rather than like sukuk, because sometimes from the scholar side, you just mentioned also from the community murabaha from Malaysia and Middle East also use the community murabaha as the akad, right? That's the thing that in Indonesia itself we cannot do commodity murabaha to doing the transaction. So I think it's from the scholar point of view is a different akad. This thing maybe from the Syria is, I think is one of the tools or the scheme to do investment in Indonesia. It's not only for the sukuk side, I think.
Okay, thank you. And look, we talked earlier about banking and retail banking being the big growth opportunities. And you mentioned digital banking. Obviously, there's a lot of innovation out there at the moment in terms of Islamic fintech. In fact, quite a number of my former competitor lawyers have all jumped away from law and have gone to set up platforms and apps.
Yes, correct.
You probably know who I'm talking about. So there's a lot out there, and given the fact that the Indonesian, micro and SME businesses make up the vast majority of your kind of customer pool, it seems logical that fintech must be a big driver. And do you see that as something that will be driven by banks like yourselves, or do you see the competition coming from these other apps? And I'll come on to how you regulate those in a moment, if you don't mind, gentlemen. Anna, please.
From the banking side, like the fintechs is not only from the platform, from the peer-to-peer financing, but it also from the cross-border payment. because they also like wise transfer or maybe from the remittance, yeah, from the remittance. It's also from doing like Union Bank or something, so Western Union. But from the bank side, I think bank is most regulated one. You know, we are supervised by Bank Indonesia in terms of the remittances, and from the OJK in terms of the, the regulator is very, is very tight, I think, yeah, from the regulated side. So I think from the customer point of view, maybe they are looking for like easier doing the transaction, because from the fintechs, right, they don't have to do the KYC, like very ridiculous KYC from the bank side. I mean, like, so from the customer, they are looking for easier. Yes, they can go to the fintech, but from the security part, I mean, is more secure to doing the banking transaction through the bank instead of the from the fintech platform. But of course, there's some pros cons on that side, right? Because sometimes they are from the fintech, they offering like easier requirement, and sometimes they are reducing the reducing the cost of doing transaction. But we are the bank is not only from the transaction side, but from the security of the transaction.
Sure.
Yeah.
And this is one of the big themes. Pak Hakim, I'm going to come to you because obviously regulating banks and regulating fintech is something that's banks will complain to you about how it's not a level playing field for them, but it is obviously a major driver for inclusion, financial inclusion, to make it much easier to get out there. What do you see as the role that fintech is playing, and how do you manage that regulator?
Well, I will more to talk to MSME sides because the customer segment is similar, right? OJK has issued a new OJK regulation number 19, 2025 concerning easier access to financing for MSME. So basically, this regulation aim to help and assist for the particular segment, which is SME, to get easy access for financing. So we believe that by issuing this regulation, we can improve and enhance and develop as well for this segment. So that's the thing that we have done to help our MSME segment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I meant to mention earlier, and I'm sure you've heard before, but there is a question and answer system where you can send me a question for the panel on my iPad here. So please do use that facility if you like. We'll try some questions from the floor towards the end. Just in a general sense, if I may, Pak Imran, how can Islamic finance play a larger role in growing the MSME community and the economy? Obviously, the major important part of what the ministry would like to see in terms of growing the economy, right?
Okay, well, actually, the government established the general policy for the SME. So the government try to encourage how the the banking system can support the development of MSME. So the Islamic finance can support the MSME economy by moving by a product-based financing toward relationship-based enterprise development. This is the partnership between the lender and the borrower. Yeah. This is because the SME is usually not only need capital, but also buy-in capital, like maybe halal certification for halal industry, for maybe stronger bookkeeper, market access, and etc. Secondly, the usually the main problem of FSM is there is no collateral. This is the problem. So if we use the conventional financing, it's difficult to solve the problem. So the Islamic finance offer the scheme like profit and loss sharing that structure like mudharabah and musyraka. So this is quite fair for SMSEs. Then using collateral that usually not that usually they are not collateral. And the thirdly about the connected the SMEs with halal value chain. This is important. This is important because FSIs dominated usually in halal industry like in food, fashion, and tourism. So with connecting with this supply chain, the development of SMEs can be achieved. And the last that maybe also important is about how to combine the social and commercial financing. So in Islamic finance we have social finance like wakaf, like zakat, yeah. And so if we combine this instrument, so like the microfinance maybe they can use like zakat, and then after that if they have developed and use commercial financing. I think this is what the role of Islamic finance.
Thank you very much. I mean, mobilizing zakat, wakaf is a major issue for, I think, not just Indonesia, but all countries with Islamic finance. You know, it's a huge opportunity, but still some struggles in terms of mobilizing that opportunity. CJ, I want to just turn to you for a second, please, if I may, and ask you, the broader Indonesian banking system versus a Sharia system, how does the credit outlook compare? And, you know, and to what extent is that broader rating of the Indonesian market, the Indonesian government, and the banking system a constraint on the growth of the Islamic banking industry?
Sure. I think before I touch on the credit outlook for the Sharia banks, I will just broadly talk about what we are seeing in terms of the broader banking system. And currently, we published a piece on the outlook earlier this year, and the current outlook is negative for the Indonesian banking system. And if you look at the drivers for the outlook, you know, we have a negative for operating environment, we have a negative outlook on capitalization, and we have a negative outlook on profitability. And I'll just quickly dive into each of these drivers. So for operating environment, you can see that there is a moderation in GDP growth. That's our expectation. And we are also talking about some of the policy uncertainty, you know, challenges in the labor market, as well as decrease in exports relating to non-oil and gas exports. So what this means is that it will put pressure or strain, you know, business sentiments that can limit the demand for credit. It can affect consumer sentiments. Now, moving on to capitalization is really more of a Danantara story, where there is uncertainty relating to the dividend extractions from the state-owned banks. Now, on profitability, it's really about what we are seeing in terms of credit costs. And that is because credit costs for Indonesian banks have been low for some time. And our expectation is that it will normalize over the next 12 to 18 months. Now, putting our focus back to Islamic Sharia banks, well, Sharia bank is part of the broader banking system, and therefore our view would be broadly similar. But there will be some nuances that I would like to highlight. Now, in terms of operating environment, our view is that for Sharia banks, it's broadly stable. We understand that there are some challenges that Sharia banks will face, but at the same time, there are policies in place that can help to support the growth of the Sharia banking system. I'll just quickly touch on the growth expectation. So for last year, 2025, Sharia banks grow at about 8% give or take, right? But for this year, we are expecting a growth somewhere between 10 to 12%. And this is mainly driven by two key areas. One, the fact that Sharia, the halal economy remains a key pillar of focus within the current medium-term plan, right? The RPJMN 2025 to 2029. At the same time, there is a mandatory halal certification for some of the products, F&B, cosmetics, and the likes of those by October 2026 this year. So that will help to support the growth. Now, moving on to profitability, the profitability of Islamic banks or Sharia banks over the cycle would be more volatile than the conventional peers. And that's because of the higher use of time deposits for Sharia banks, very similar to what we are seeing in Malaysia. And that's because of the stronger growth, right? If you have stronger growth on the asset side, naturally you will need funding to support this growth. And to get this funding fast, you will probably need to pay up a little bit more, and therefore time deposits account for a higher proportion of the funding base. And therefore, from that perspective, we are expecting some pressure on profitability as well. Similarly, on the credit cost aspect. Moving on to capitalization, pressure on internal capital generation and higher growth means that capitalization will see some pressure as well. So the last thing that I would like to highlight is on asset quality. Now, on asset quality, our expectation is stable for the broader banking system. And this is, you can say that it's very similar to what we are seeing for Islamic banks or Sharia banks as well. But the key thing to highlight is that because of the higher exposure to retail loans, this means that challenges in the economy, for example, higher inflation, if there's higher inflation or further weakening of the labor market, this means that Islamic banks or Sharia banks will be more vulnerable to some of these challenges. And this is an area that we are focusing on, or rather we will be focusing on over the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay, thank you very much. We're running short of time now. I've got two questions from the floor and one question I was going to ask each panel member. The questions from the floor, which I'd like you to think about while I ask you the final question, is how the development of Islamic blended finance, social and commercial, for micro and small and medium-sized enterprises financing in Indonesia, and how to gain market share versus conventional, and also how stakeholders support the investor in Indonesia's Sharia ecosystem, knowing that MSMEs are lacking in collateral and some are non-bankable. Does anybody feel they want to pick up either of those two questions? I'm not sure who to fire them out. No? It's a difficult question. Let me finish with my question. You'll think about the answer to the floor questions. What is the key message that you would like this audience to take away from the panel session today in terms of what we've discussed, the regulatory environment, the ecosystem, the development? And I'm going to start, please, with Pak Imran at the other end of the row.
uh, Indonesia Indonesia Islamic Finance Opportunity 2 is increasingly defined not only by scale but by integration, inclusion, and real sector relevance. Indonesia already possesses many of structural foundations needed to become one of the world's leading Islamic finance ecosystem. The world's largest Islamic population, a rapid growth halal economy, and the strongest social finance traditions. Indonesia is on the right uh, place to integrating the financial policy to Indonesian national plan, and the strong coordination and cooperation between stakeholders is very, very important to the success of this development of new finance. So the government, Mr. Finance, invite all of us to collaborate and coordinate strongly to be the center of both of Islamic economy and finance, and in order to welcoming Golden Indonesia 2045. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak.
Well, we think that we always want to help our industry grow. For instance, like in the banking sector, for now, Islamic banking holds only 7.51% from our national banking asset. Means a figure that reflects significant room for our growth. So that's the thing that we have to think about. So we think there are some drivers that can power the growth. The first is consolidation, where consolidation is expected to create a larger bank with greater scale and capacity. And the next is product innovation, the thing that I have mentioned earlier, where in our roadmap, we have launched for 9 guidelines that we believe that it really helpful to our industry as their guidance. The next is digital development, where our Mrs. Anna told us that it's really important as well to help the penetration to our customer. And we, as OJK, we have launched also some OJK regulation to support this, such as OJK number 11, 21, 34, including AI governance and digital resilience guidelines. And the last is we have to support our micro, small, and medium enterprise financing. The same thing that I have told you earlier, that we have issued our OJK regulation particularly to support this segment. So we believe that this driver can serve as a positive catalyst in encouraging our Islamic finance to become a better. Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully we can make them snappy, because we're now sitting between the audience and their makam. So.
Yep. I think the most important takeaways from this forum is now we cannot only speak about Indonesia potential, because the government has laid a strong foundation for Islamic finance to grow with integrated policy framework spanning from the RPJPN or the long-term plan to the medium plan, also for annual plan, not only nationally but also regionally. So even regional government now have plan for Islamic finance and economics. So and also Bank Indonesia as one of the regulator, and also OJK, the other regulator, has its blueprint or its policy framework to support Islamic finance. So the foundation is there. What we need is just growing, do what our best so we can grow the Islamic finance better.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So from me that Indonesia is one of the largest population Muslim in the world. So I think there is like a huge opportunity for us from in Indonesia. Like we also have like many products that I do believe that we can compete with other banks. I mean, like, it's not only in Indonesia, but also in the world. Yeah. So I think is this huge opportunity is also supported by the regulator like from the OJK and from the Bank Indonesia, also from the Ministry of Finance itself is support us. I think we can we can do as a big opportunity for us. And the second is I think is a collaboration. Collaboration is the key. So what I'm seeing is now like the collaboration is not only with the banks, it's also with the non-banks. Like you said earlier, is like fintech. Fintech we do have collaboration with them. So the collaboration is the key thing I think for us for the banks. Yeah, so we cannot compete each other, but we do have like the market is there, the regulator is also support us, the government also support us, especially for the Syariah bank. And from Bank Syariah Indonesia perspective, the product is also we can compete with other banks in the world. And also from the other side is from digitalize also we have to increase the the customer from the customer side. I think that's from
That's
us.
great. Thank you very much. And really helpful. CJ, very quickly.
Yeah, just really quickly, I think across the panel, the key message is growth, right? Because of the sheer potential, the sheer amount of opportunities that are available. But just really quickly, from our perspective, from a credit perspective, what we are focusing on is really whether this growth is sustainable or not, and whether they are supported by the fundamentals of the economy, the fundamentals of the bank. Because if you're growing too fast, challenges relating to unseasoned risk, challenges relating to, it's also important how this growth is being funded, right? Because funding via deposits as well as compared to funded via interbank borrowings is very different.
Thank you. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, I think you've heard it from the panel. After many years of growth as perhaps a niche religious offering, the Islamic banking in Indonesia is now a major player and has the potential to grow substantially. As mentioned just a moment ago, the size of the population, the scale in Indonesia is like nothing else in the world. So the opportunities there. I would like to thank my panelists. Thank you very much for navigating us through that huge amount of material. We could have done a whole day on this subject, and they managed to do it in just a little bit over an hour. So thank you very much to them, and thank you very much for your time and your patience with us.
Thank you very much to the first panel. Can I ask all panelists to take a step forward for a
Photograph. Oh, hang on, there I am. A quick photograph from all the panelists, please, before you depart the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, one more round of applause for your first panel, Nicholas, Anna, Jun Wong, Iko, Mohammed, and Rahman. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to networking and refreshments. At the back, we will reconvene at 12:20 for the next session entitled Islamic Capital Markets in ASEAN, from potential to regional market growth. Amongst others, we'll be talking about how we're going to develop the Islamic capital markets in Indonesia and try and get more issuances from the corporates. Enjoy your break. We'll see you back here in 20 minutes' time.
Every strong market begins with a solid foundation. In Indonesia, preservation and progress